Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the SAS Sports Show on ASTV, brought to you by Southwest Terminal. My name is JayD Haughton, and I will be your host tonight, and I will be joined alongside by my co-host, Jared Down, from the AAA show on ASTV as well. Tonight is all about the WHL. It's finally here, and I could not be more excited. I'm finally happy that the WHL is back. So on tonight's show, Jared and I will be we'll be breaking down each of the four WHL divisions, starting with the Central as they started their season last Friday. We will talk about the four games that happened last weekend. We'll show some highlights. We're going to give some predictions for the division. And for the East, BC, and US division, we'll be breaking down each division a little lightly, and we'll look at the standings from last year, and we'll be talking about, giving our own predictions on how each division will be at the end of the 24-game season. Also, near the end of the show, we will be joined by a very special guest to give us some insight on the newly approved BC return to play plan. So stay tuned for all this WHL action. And I'm welcomed by my co-host, Jared Down. Jared, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, JD. Thanks for having me on. I've been waiting all spring all fall, I guess, for WHL to get back. I'm ready to talk some dub hockey and glad to have it back on the tube.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. As soon as that new WHL Live came out, I paid my $60 and I was able to watch about 2.5 of the 4 games over the weekend. So that was very exciting. I imagine for everybody that's a WHL fan, not just myself and yourself, but everybody, to see some hockey being played.
Yeah, it's great. I wasn't able to sit down and watch the full games, but I had them on in the background and tuning in and out, and some great hockey to start the year, and it was great.
Well, like I said in the in my intro there, we are going to start off with the Central Division and talk about the 4 games that were played last weekend. We're going to start with game number 1. It was the first game of, I guess, this short WHL season. It was the Medicine Hat Tigers beat up on their narrowly escaped a win in Red Deer. They won 5-4, came back in overtime to win that one. They're actually down 3 goals with about 10:34 left in the third period, so they definitely found a way to win that game. And what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, that was a wild game. I caught a bit of it. Was watching, and I seen it was 5-1 there, or 4-1, I guess. And 10 minutes left. I'm like, well, I can afford to kind of just tune some other things I had to get done, and all of a sudden I look back and it's 4-3, and then next thing you know, we're in overtime. It was action packed. You can definitely tell, maybe some of the rust might have played in there. Defending the lead might be a little tougher when you haven't played in so long, but great hockey to start the season.
Yeah, and like I have there on the screen there, Corson Hopwell, he kind of was that key player for the Tigers getting that hat trick, which was big for them. He actually got the OT winner. And speaking of that OT winner, I have a video, and I want your input on it. It was just obviously Ethan Anders thought it was goaltender interference, but I just want to get your take on it. So here's the game-winning goal from Friday night.
Hopwell. The Tigers line drops it for Jaden Group, but Group loses a wheel, and Carson Hopwell comes in. Masters gives chase. Hopwell in, shot, save made by Anders, rebound! They score! So Hopwell with the shot, and it's Masters and Hopwell. It looks like Masters is the one making the most contact with Anders, pushing both of them.
It's tough in goaltender interference situations, and looking at that again, when I saw it live, I thought maybe, but the more I watch it, there's just so much momentum with Hopwell coming down there. Yes, he's kind of contributing to the D-man slide into the goalie there, but I think they got the call right on the ice. I could see you make an argument for the other side, but at the end of the day, there's not much else Hoppo can do. He got his shot off, and he just happened to kind of spin the D-man off him into the goalie, and it went in. I think the call was right.
Yeah, and like you said, when I first watched it, it was a little bit tough because of the fact is that the play happened so fast and it looked like he might have bumped Ethan Anders and pushed him into the net. But looking at it again on the replay, like we saw, it was more of Kyle Masters pushing his own goaltender into the goal, and then the puck sliding in, and then Hopwell kind of just sidestepped his way out of the situation. But it was a good win for the Tigers to start the season. Obviously, Red Deer was down early in the game, 1-0. Nick McCary got the Tigers' first goal of the season, which was he was in the slot, and then he just went right over the glove hand of Ethan Anders, and that started off. And then Red Deer just came out on fire, and that was the highlight of the night for between both of the games was Jaden Group. He had a nice goal, which I'm going to play for everybody right now, and then which, like I said, was the highlight of the night. So it's going to be exciting to see.
Rebels win the face-off. Masters has it at the blue line. Left side for King. Plays it in tight for Group. Fires it. Scores! Great hand-foot coordination by Jaden Group to get the puck on his stick. He spins in tight, slides it past Bjorklund, and the Rebels have tied this game.
You don't see that very often at this level, just because the skill level and the size and strength you have to have. It kind of a one-swoop emotion. What a great play. The Red Deer Rebels.
As you saw from there, it was it was a split second. You got to bring the puck from your backhand to your forehand and just slid it right by the toe of Garen Bjorklund. So that was, I would say, maybe the highlight goal of the night for the Rebels. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's one of those plays that you got to make a split decision. You got to do it quick, and it's often not easy. And 10 years ago, that's not a play you commonly seen. I think of a guy like James Van Riemsdyk who kind of pioneered that move. He's more known to go through the legs there, but side of the net and gets it on his forehand there and puts her in, and great goal. And Group, he's a guy I'm kind of interested to see how he does this year. I believe he only got two games in last year, but he put up 3 points in those 2 games, and he's an 03 born, and I'm kind of excited to see how he takes his game to the next level with a Medicine Hat team who wasn't quite there last year, but they're promising.
Yeah, and he was a part of the. I'm pretty sure he's a part of the draft year that when Dylan Gunther got drafted, he was in that same draft year. Speaking of Dylan Gunther, he was a part of the second game of that. I would say a doubleheader, if you want to call it that, on Friday night. The Hurricanes were in Edmonton to visit the Oil Kings. Obviously, wasn't the game that they really wanted it to for their first game of this WHL season. They got big loss, 7-1. And first off, I'm just going to say this. See what your thoughts are. I feel like the Hurricanes are really missing Dylan Cousins, Oliver Ocular, and Kalen Addison. They were 3 of the top. I know Cousins and Ocular were last year for the Canes. They're strong scoring. They're kind of, I wouldn't say rebuilding, but they got a lot of 17 and 18-year-olds that are now have to step up. Obviously, they had some troubles on the power play. Their only goal came on the power play. They were 1 for 8. Obviously, the Oil Kings striked like 36 seconds into the game, and that it just kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of forgot about when we were kind of exchanging tweets there on Twitter before the season started. Lethbridge had a pretty solid team last year, and largely that was due to Cousins and Addison, and losing those players in a year where you don't get a lot of time to build that chemistry. It showed early for the Hurricanes, and they're going to need you're gonna need players like Logan Barloggy to step up here this season. I know there's some big shoes to fill there in Lethbridge. You got the D-man, I'm blanking on
Alex
his name
Cotton.
right now, Cotton, who you're going to need more of him this season too on the back end, just getting that first pass up the ice, and some breakouts might have to be a little more heavily relied on him. But yeah, looking at that game, you could definitely tell early on that they're hurting without those three big names.
Yeah, it was a little rough, and obviously, like, looking at Carl Tedachuk too, he split the net kind of last season with Brian Thompson, and it just, he had 47 shots, and then it's just tough to see. Hopefully, he's going to have to be big for them this year. Obviously, like we talked about, they got some guys coming up. Zach Stringer, a local Lethbridge product, that this is his 18-year-old season. He had a good season last year. Now, he's going to have to carry the team along with Alex Cotton, like we talked about. But the big names, obviously, Edmonton still rolling. They picked up where they left off from last year. Dylan Gunther, 2 goals, 4 points. Jake Neighbors had 3 points. Kate Oliver had 3 points. And speaking of Dylan Gunther, I'm going to show a couple of his goals from the game on Friday, and they're just, no chance for Tedachuk.
Right wing corner, and he'll pursue it himself, gets it back to Neighbors at the point. Here's Jake Neighbors inching his way in, top right circle, down to the side, then for Oliver, backdoor feed, one-timers! Jake Neighbors, left wing side, takes a hard hit, gets the pass over to Gunther, backdoor feed, tip, they score!
Like, it's just unreal. Jake Neighbors took a big hit there, still got the puck off to Gunther, and then he got it off, and tic-tac-toe in the net. Carl Tedachuk didn't even know what hit him. And then the first goal, no chance for the goaltender. It's on the power play. There's, it's get that cross-ice pass. There's 9 times out of 10, I don't think you're stopping that.
No, and Gunther is showing you exactly why the WHL needed to have a season this year. He's draft eligible, and he is lighting it up to start the season. And just, like I said, emphasizing why the WHL needed to showcase some of these players to kind of highlight what they can do, because this is going to go a long ways in where Gunther falls in the draft. And he is making a case for a top 5 pick right now.
Yeah, and it's good to see. Obviously the Oil Kings are that top pick for being the first in the division this year. But before we get into the games from last Saturday, we're just going to take a quick commercial break. It's everybody's favorite time of the Stat Sports Show. It's commercial time. So we're going to be right back, and when we come back, we're going to be breaking down the other 2 games well. And we're back here on the Stat Sports Show with my co-host tonight, JayD Haughton. We're just breaking down some of the games in the Central Division from last weekend, and we're going to carry on. We're going to go to game number 2 for the Medicine Hat Tigers against the Red Deer Rebels. Red Deer was in Medicine Hat. Didn't go the way that Red Deer might have wanted. They had such a strong game the night before. Then they had to, drive down Highway 2 and then off to Highway 1 down to Medicine Hat. They were down 4-0 after the end of the first period. So Byron Fancy got to start that night. Didn't finish the game. I think he got pulled about halfway through the first period. Ethan Anders came in, which played the night before. Had a really good game, and then he got thrown in. He let 3 goals in on actually 2 goals. One was an empty netter, so he made 18 saves, 2 goals on 20 shots. So wasn't the night that Red Deer wanted, but Medicine Hat getting the big win. Everybody, it seems like they got on the point sheet that night.
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, just it's the signs of rust. It's kind of feeling out there, and I'm sure we're going to see more of these kind of results with other divisions as they get going. But the Rebels Medicine Hat. I like how they're looking to start the year, and they came out strong. And yeah, I think we're in for some more good hockey as the seasons go on.
Well, and newly appointed captain Ryan Chizowski, he's a Kamloops boy. He's been with the organization for a while now. This is going to be his last season, and they got a good team, like you said. They got Brett Kampowich. That was part of the trade from the Oil Kings from about a year and a half ago, where Josh Williams went from Medicine Hat to Edmonton. They brought in Brett Kamp, and he's lived up to the hype that everybody had for him coming down to Medicine Hat. He got 2 points on the night. Obviously, as you can see, everybody was on the score sheet, and Oasis Weisblatt. It was his second ever WHL game. He got his first goal. Obviously, he's the younger brother to Ozzy Weisblatt that played for the Prince Albert Raiders. I think he actually, Ozzy is coming back to the Prince Albert Raiders. He got drafted by San Jose in this year's NHL entry draft. But just to look at, breaking into the NHL, we're going to be looking at Oasis Weisblatt's first WHL goal.
This is Weisblatt picks the upper right-hand corner after stealing the puck, and Byron Fancy left hung out to dry, and that was a seeing eye shot, wasn't it?
Well, Oasis Weisblatt, I mean, he had an option there. It looked like he was going to pass over to Ashton Furster, but he fired the puck over the shoulder of Byron Fancy.
What a way to break into the WHL, high glove side.
Yeah, I love the look of the goaltender after that goal. The arms in the air, like, what do you do on a shot like that? Definitely a power shot from that short side there, and man, good for him for getting that goal, a monkey off the back so early.
Yeah, and just before we cut over to the Lethbridge Edmonton game, I just wanted to give a big shout out. It was Bob Ridley's 4,000th WHL game called for the Medicine Hat Tigers. It's his 50th season. He was awarded the Bob Ridley Award for Media Excellence. They created an award for him. He got awarded it right before the game in Medicine Hat. So congratulations to him. He was the first star of the game, which I feel is suiting for Bob's lengthy career, especially in Medicine Hat. So we're going to go to game number 2. On Saturday night, it was the Edmonton Oil Kings in Lethbridge. Obviously, same story as the night before. Big 7-2 win this time. They were up 5-0 late in the second period. That was probably a key to victory. They went 2 for 4 on the power play. Lethbridge went 0 for 6, so they went 1 for 14 on the weekend. Obviously, not having those big guys like we talked about has really hurt them. Just quickly, what were your points on the game?
I think overall, you're just looking at two teams with two different stories coming into the season, and it's showing. The Oil Kings, they got all their big boys back. They get Neighbors and Gunther who come in with that chemistry and simply overpowered the Hurricanes. And I don't think not necessarily that it was on the game prep by the Hurricanes. I think it's just they've only been together for so long, and when you come up against a team that has so many returning talents, high-end talent, and you're just trying to get your feet back together here, and it's hard to overcome that. And it showed again in game 2. Obviously, Lethbridge is going to regroup after this weekend, and I would expect a better effort next season, but it's not going to be an easy season for Lethbridge. Guys are going to have to step up, like we've talked about.
Well, and just quickly as well, Edmonton is going to be taking on Medicine Hat next weekend. Red Deer will be Calgary is going to open up their season this weekend with a home-and-home with the Red Deer Rebels. Obviously, the Central Division has only released 2 weeks of their schedule, so we're still not sure when Lethbridge is going to be able to play again, but that may be a good thing for them. They can get some practicing, get the boys, back in getting the legs moving a little bit more. Obviously, it wasn't the weekend they wanted, and like you said, it's going to be a tough Central Division. And which is going to lead into our next segment of just kind of briefly, Jared and I are just going to talk about kind of our predictions on how the Central Division is going to finish this year. And JayD, why don't you start?
Yeah, like I said earlier, the Oil Kings have so many returning talents, and you look at like Jake Neighbors, who he went, I believe he's the first-round pick this year, to St. Louis, and Gunther, he's going to be. I wouldn't be shocked if he's a top 3 pick come the draft. And a guy I really like and have been following for a while is Sebastian Cossa, goaltender for the Oil Kings. He's a big body, and I think NHL teams are going to be watching him closely this season. And he had great numbers last year in 33 games. I think he had about 2.2 goals against average. And you combine a solid goaltending performance with him throughout the year and just that front-heavy offense, I think I would almost, for me personally, a lock to win this division. I hate using the word lock, but they passed the eye test early. Obviously, a lot of hockey left to be played. And then you trickle down to Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Calgary, Red Deer, and I think it kind of go any way this year. I don't think the Rebels are going to be as far off as you see in the standings from last year. They got a lot of returning players up front and on the back end, and I think that's going to help in a year like this. You've seen that on the weekend. They were able to hang in there with Medicine Hat. So from 2 to 4, I think it's going to go either way. Personally, if I were to list them out, I'd maybe lean the Tigers second, and I'm going to throw a wrench in there and say maybe Calgary third with Lethbridge fourth and Red Deer fifth. I'm going to go a little bold there, change up my Twitter predictions. But what are your thoughts there, JD?
Well, like you said, Edmonton's is picking up right where they left off last year. Obviously, Jake Neighbors and Dylan Gunther coming back. Sebastian Cossa, he is, picking up where he left off last year. I'm not sure who their backup is this year because I knew it was Beck Warm. They got Beck from the Tri-City Americans in a trade. So I'm going to see Edmonton go number 1. It's going to be tight. I guess we're going to find out what Medicine Hat lives up to the hype as well with their high-scoring offense to go up with Edmonton's high-scoring offense as well. So the goaltenders are going to be a big key this weekend when them two teams match up. And obviously Lethbridge having a tough start, but like we said, they're missing a few players. So I'm going to drop them to about 4th. Calgary, we're seeing the first of Calgary for the season this weekend against Red Deer. But Calgary is also missing 4 of their key players from last year, which were Mark Kastelik, Jet Wu. He was a big defenseman on the back end. Dakota Krebs. No. I can't remember the oldest Krebs brother. He played for Calgary. He's obviously an overager this year. And then another player I just can't remember. So they're a young team. They're looking to prove themselves just like anybody else in the Central Division. And Red Deer, I wouldn't sleep on Red Deer either. Like you said, they kept with Medicine Hat on Friday. Obviously didn't go their way on Saturday. But they got some good young players. They got the veteran and Ben King, which they acquired from your hometown Swift Current Broncos. And then they got Josh Tarswell. Ethan Anders has been solid in net form. He's their overage 20-year-old goaltender. And then they got Byron Fancy, which has proven that, he can play at that level. And they got Jaden Grubin as a good young guy. And I guess it would be his true rookie season this year as well. But it's exciting to see what Red Deer can do. So I'm going to go Edmonton 1, Medicine Hat 2. It's hard to tell because I haven't seen Calgary this year, but I'm going to put Calgary at 3rd. Maybe Lethbridge 4th, Red Deer 4th, Lethbridge 5th, unfortunately. And
I personally think that there's going to be a decent drop off from the Oil Kings, the Tigers in the points, and then there'll be a little bit of a more drop off. But I believe that 3, 4, 5 of Lethbridge, Calgary, Red Deer could finish in any order, and I would not be shocked if it's within 6 points of each other. It's hard to predict a season like this when you're just playing the same 4 teams, right? So, and like we've talked about on my show and off the air, is anything can happen. Team gets hot, a goalie finds his groove, and all of a sudden you win 5 games. Well, 5 games goes a long way in this short season.
Well, yeah. And just to add something in before we go to our commercial break, I'm excited to see, guys like Carl Tedachuk. He's a local Lethbridge product, and to see, if he can stick, because he's going to be a busy guy this year. If last weekend is any indication on how busy he's going to be, he's going to have to come up big. Same with Brian Thompson. I always think there's a P in there. Has to be weird. But anyways, and also excited to see how Alex Cotton and Zach Stringer play as well. Red Deer, they got some young talent that I'm excited to see that could go any way. It's just exciting hockey. They're going to be playing each other 6 times. So if they're not going to get sick of each other now, they're definitely going to get sick of each other by the end of this season.
Yeah. One thing I also want to note is some of these teams aren't playing in their normal barns. And it's going to be interesting to see how maybe that affects them as the season goes on. The Oil Kings, I don't know the arenas off the top of my head, but I know the Oil Kings, Calgary, they're not playing in their normal barns. I believe Calgary set up outside the city at a hotel and resort not far from the arena. So it's going to be interesting to see how little things like that affect a team. It's a shortened season, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. So, as I said, we're going to take a quick commercial break. That's how Jared and I get paid here on Amateur Sports or on ASTV, is by commercials. So we're just going to take a quick commercial and be right back, and we're going to be talking about the East Division now. And we're back here on the SAS Sports Show here on ASTV. And like I said before the break, we are going to be getting into the East Division. Obviously, as you can see, the stats from last year, they have the advantage, I feel, because there are 7 teams in this division instead of the usual 6. They got added Swift Current because obviously they're in the Central, but provincial guidelines, them being in Saskatchewan, they've now moved into the East Division bubble, which is in Regina. And right off the bat, I just kind of want your thoughts, Jared, of the Regina bubble and how that's going to will there be any home ice advantage?
I don't think there's going to be any home ice advantage. Maybe the first couple of games for guys who've played in Regina the most, know the ice, the boards a little better. But at the end of the day, a lot of these teams, in a normal season, you play a lot of games in that barn, and Swift is just freshly removed from that division. They've played a lot of games in the Brand Center. Practices are going to be at just next door to the adjoining Everaz. I think it's Everaz Place. And I like the bubble. I think it's going to be interesting to see how certain teams handle it. I don't know exactly what the restrictions are inside for certain for individual teams and mingling and all that. I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of these rebuilding teams for essentially team building. Just you're going to be together every day for the next how many months. It's going to go a long ways and maybe help kickstart some of these rebuilds.
Yeah, and obviously, as you can see from last year, the Pats, the Moose Jaw Warriors, and the current Broncos are all out of playoff position. Saskatoon, I believe, had the last playoff spot. They had the second wildcard spot to get in. They did clinch a playoff spot, but season got canceled. And just looking at the, just as the stats from last year, I'm excited to actually just right off the bat, Regina Pat's 15-year-old that's going to be playing Connor Bedard. I have to admit, I looked at the roster, didn't see his name on it, but I imagine that he will be in the Regina bubble to play a little bit of his 15-year-old year that he wasn't able to play last fall. But I'm obviously excited to see Connor Bedard, but I'm just really excited to see how the other teams match up. And with Swift Current, them being in the rebuild for about a couple of years now, Moose Jaw is at that stage too, where they're getting there. Obviously all these teams have young prospects that are coming up, but I just kind of wanted your thoughts on, kind of what teams you like and what teams you feel like you should watch out for.
I'm liking those top teams we see here. It's going to be interesting to see how teams like Brandon and Winnipeg and Prince Albert translate over to this season. And then you look at Saskatoon, who is in the mix there, and then just how the points are going to divvy up with Regina, Moose Jaw, and Swift Current. As I expect, Regina, Moose Jaw, Swift Current are probably going to be in the bottom three just because there's so much progression they got to do heading into this season. And it's going to come down to when they shock teams, right? How many times is PA going to falter against Saskatoon or Regina or Moose Jaw, or how many times are the ice going to slip up to Swift Current? Because you know how when you play teams this much, you look at an NHL right now, Ottawa just has Montreal's number, and there's a good chance it's going to happen this year with one of these bottom teams that are just gonna, whatever happens, it's gonna go their way, and it's gonna maybe snake bite some of these top end teams. But I don't know. This is the more interesting division, personally. Not just because I'm a Bronco fan, but there's a lot of variety amongst where these teams are at, and how they play out it's going to be intriguing.
Yeah, honestly, being out here in Saskatoon, I'm not from Saskatchewan originally, but I'm liking the way that it could go either way in between Saskatoon, Brandon, Winnipeg, PA. I know Caden Gooley just got released by Laval. He's going to go back to the Raiders, and if they have a good strong goaltender, and if Winnipeg can, if they can get Michael Tepley, which was their leading goal scorer from last year, Brandon Wheat Kings, they're getting Braden Schneider back. They just released, along with Swift Current and Regina and Moose Jaw, they've released their official rosters for the season, and I've seen that Ben McCarthy, Braden Schneider, and all their big name players from last year coming back. So that's a good thing for for the Wheat Kings as well. And it's going to be nice, especially with a lot of these 15-year-olds getting the opportunity to sign their player agreements and being a part of the bubble. Like, for instance, Brady Birney from the Regina Pack Canadiens. He's one of 5 Regina Pack Canadiens that have been able to join the WHL clubs, along with Logan Hammett as well with the Brandon Wheat Kings. So them two are going to be together in the bubble as 15-year-olds. Obviously, they can only play a maximum of 5 games unless the U18 season is canceled. But it's still going to be exciting for these guys, going to be able to, get some reps and warm up at least, and maybe get a little bit of ice time just to get their feet wet, depending on what the score is. And then and along with the other 3, you got Blake Hewer that's going to the Oil Kings. You got Kyron Gronick, which is going to Prince George, and then you got Sam Aremba, which is going to the T-Birds in Seattle. So that's exciting too. But it's going to be a tight race between the top 4 teams from last season. I feel like all the teams are still going to be as strong as they were last year. They're still going to have the players. Obviously, they all had to, their 20-year-olds aren't coming back, which is unfortunate. But you're going to see. I feel like you're going to see this in this bubble more than ever. A lot of guys that are going to step up and they're going to come to the plate because it is such a shortened season and it's going to be high paced, high fast. There's only 24 games, and just before we kind of stop with the East Division, what are your thoughts?
I just want to just kind of correct you on something there. You mentioned that Logan Hammett was a 15-year-old there. He's actually an 03 born. I had the pleasure of having him on my show a couple weeks back, and he's one guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Talking with him, he's accomplished everything you can accomplish in the SAS U18 AAA Hockey League. He's won a Defenseman of the Year. He won the defensive scoring title. He won the Adam Harold Memorial Award, which goes to a player that distributes, I think, sportsmanship and everything great about an athlete that you can have. And he wore a letter for the Regina Pac Canadians, and just talking to him, and this was supposed to be his year to take the next step, and it got delayed, obviously, but I'm glad that he's finally getting that chance. And just touch on before we get to predictions. It's going to be interesting how some of these smaller teams develop. I was looking at Moose Jaw's roster. They got a lot of returning players, and I think that's going to go a long way for the next step. But then you look at Swift Current, who they got a lot of new faces, even amongst the guys that have experience. Not a lot of their returning players who played in the WHL last year, played a full year with them last year. And they got a lot of guys coming in that, they split the season with a Canadian Junior Hockey League team or their AAA team. So it's going to be interesting to see if they just get batted around or if they can hang in there and run with the big boys. But I think this bubble is going to help them more than it hurts them. Just being together, the tight-knit group, it's going to go a long ways. What are your thoughts on the possible standings?
You know what? I'm just going to leave the standings the way they are right now. I'm just going to go with that. That would probably be my prediction, just thinking about it right now. That's, because I'm pretty sure that PA is going to get Max Paddock back. I don't think he's a 20-year-old, or he could be a 20-year-old this season. So that's going to be – they're going to have a good goaltender in net for him. They're going to get I'm not sure if Alexi Protas is going to come back. He was their leading scorer from last season. Obviously, they're getting Caden Gooley back as well from the AHL, so that's exciting. And I just wanted to correct myself after you corrected me. Brady Bierney is a 15-year-old that is committing, signed his NHL or his WHL player agreement. So he is the only one that's under that rule of only been able to play 5 games. My apologies to anybody out there that's watching this right now. But yeah, I would leave the predictions the way they are, honestly.
Yeah, another thing to note about those 05 born, I believe it is once the AAA seasons are canceled, they can play more than 5 games with their WHL team. So if you're looking at and I'm not sure, I'd have to go back and look if there are any 05s out of the Alberta League, which I'm not sure if there is out of Alberta. They're fair game to play a full season, which is unfortunate for a guy like Connor Bedard, who, he worked so hard to get this exceptional status, and it almost become not a thing, right? Because he's almost to the level of a lot of these guys. Going back to your PA note, even if Max Paddock doesn't come back, I believe their backup in Carter Sarenko is an excellent candidate to step in. He's like Costa from Edmonton. He's a big body. He had a pretty good season last year, and I think he could take the next step if Paddock isn't able to come back. And going back to the standings, I like PA at 1. Winnipeg, I think, is going to be largely contributed to whether or not Savoy makes his return from down south. Look at Brandon. I think I would almost lean Brandon maybe leave Winnipeg there. I look at the Blades. I think it's going to come down to goaltending. If Nolan Meyer can return to form, as I guess you could say, 2 years ago he had a really good year. There's a lot of excitement about him, a lot of promise. He kind of took a step back last year, and what's the other goalie there? He kind of stepped in a bit there.
Ian McInnes.
Yes, and it's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be the focal point of the Blades, is how their goaltending can kind of withstand the league. And with them playing on weekends, it's not going to be as bad, I don't think. I think this is for a year for a guy like Nolan Meyer to find his game. This is a year that he could do it. It's easier to regroup when you're playing every weekend, right? But if I were to make my predictions, I'd probably go PA 1. Let's move Brandon to 2. Winnipeg to 3. Leave the Blades at 4. I'm gonna say Musha takes the step, goes 5, edges out Regina slightly, and Regina goes to 6, and then I think Sook Hearn's gonna be at the bottom. They're just too young. As much as I would love for them to say, hey, they could be 4th, they just got a lot of new faces, a lot of rookies, and hey, some of these guys might come in and step in fairly well, but I think just based off last year, it's going to be another long year for the Bronco fans. They got some exciting players coming up, which is promising, and I think this bubble is going to be good for them. But yeah, that's how I'm going to go.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. The ASTV SAS Sports Show WHL East Division predictions, and if we're wrong, just we'll cancel the show. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. But anyways, we're gonna take a quick commercial break because it's everybody's favorite time here on the SAS Sports Show. It's commercial time, so we'll be right back with the U.S. division. And we're back here on the SAS Sports Show. Let me just get up the U.S. division standings from last season. As you can see, it was a tight race between the Portland Winterhawks, the Everett Silvertips, and the Spokane Chiefs. Obviously, Spokane was 10 points behind, 9 and 10 points behind Everett and Portland. So, I don't think they had any, chance of really making that, getting second or first there. But first off, I just have to say, obviously, I was got to watch these guys this league in Kamloops at the time, and Portland Winterhawks and the Silvertips, they literally just left the ground running last year with their solid play. Obviously, Everett had their number 1 goaltender, Dustin Wolf, back, and they had a backup. I remember his name. He's a Minnesota boy. He's tall, covered the net, great back for Dustin Wolf. And obviously, Dustin Wolf, he's not your average height of goaltender these days, but he could definitely be athletic enough to cover the net, and he played very well. And then Portland Winterhawks were led by Seth Jarvis, which was second in points behind Adam Beckman there, and then Adam Beckman from the Spokane Chiefs, had 107 points. He is, back. And just to kind of start things off, what do you feel, of your knowledge of the U.S. division, and how do you think it's going to play out? Who do you like?
I think Everett is going to be the favorite of this division. They just got edged out this past season. But I look at the history of the Silvertips the past 20 years. Since they came into the league, I believe they may have only missed the playoffs once. And they just have that system that frustrates teams. They might not always be that goal-scoring team, but they're always defensively sound. And a year with so much uncertainty, If they can have a lot of returning players, I think that's going to be go a long way into dominating this division. Is just that safe defensive system that's going to frustrate these guys who might have a hard time finding their groove. And in the long run, that's going to, I would put them as a favorite just based off that.
Yeah, and Portland is actually without 4 of their players: Jack O'Brien, James Steffen, Clay Hannes, and Cross Hannes as well. I can't remember Cross Hannes' last name, but they got loaned out to the USHL team. So they weren't they weren't their leading scorers on the team, but they definitely contributed with 30 to 40 point seasons last year. So to have those guys on the back end in your second and third lines, missing that could be key for Portland as well. They're getting Seth Jarvis back, but obviously we've seen, if anyone's an Edmonton Oilers fan around here, having one guy that can score never doesn't really help the team very well. The way that Portland works is they put a team together that just can work soundly together. And obviously Seth Jarvis led the team last year in scoring with, I think it was 96 points or 97 points. But there was a team built around him that anybody on any line can score goals on any given night. And missing those guys, those back end guys, might be some issues. I'm not sure if Joel Hofer is coming back from. I'm not sure if he's with an AHL team for the St. Louis Blues, because that's who he got drafted to. Not 100% sure, or even if Mr. Wolf from Everett is going to be coming back either. So we'll see. And obviously Spokane Chiefs got Adam Beckman back, which was their leading scorer for the team and the whole league last year. So that's going to be key. And with Seattle and Tri-Cities, they had rough years last year. Seattle lost their starting goaltender, Roddy Ross. He got traded to, I think, Regina. And the Tri-City Americans, they had a tough year last year. They had a really young team. Middle of the year, they got rid of their starter, Beck Worm, and got traded to Edmonton. And they had, I think their backup was an 18-year-old, and then his backup was a 16-year-old. So still young guys coming in. So they're Seattle and Tri-Cities are, maybe not at that level as Spokane, Everett, and Portland are.
Yeah, and you make a good point about all these players who are playing down south right now, and I think that's going to go a long ways to decide how these standings play out. As these guys are going to come in fresh, and these guys aren't just a lot of these guys aren't your third or fourth liners. They're your stars, right? So to be able to have your stars come in fresh, with a lot of experience this season, playing down in the States, unlike up here, they haven't had their season halted and they've been playing relatively normal. So they're going to come in mid-season form, and unlike other divisions, we could see this division be a little faster paced, and that's another area where Seattle and Tri-City might have a bit of a disadvantage, no matter how much they want to take that next step, is they might not have those guys that are ready to go up against your Seth Jarvis type of guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard for Seattle, and I feel like Tri-Cities this year. Spokane Chiefs they're running with 3 goaltenders this year, 2 of them which are rookies. The backup goaltender from last year is now their starter, as they lost their starting goaltender Lucas Perique, which he was an import player. He had a great season for him. Got injured, got to play some World Juniors that year, and then also last year in the bubble there in Edmonton, he got to play some. So that's good for him. I'm not sure, and that's another thing we're going to bring up in our next segment with our special guest, is talk about these import players and, do they have restrictions on if they're a part of their national teams, whatever country they're playing in, are they able to come back? But, before we get into that and get into the BC division, just to end things here, what are your predictions for how the division's going to end after the 24 games?
I'm gonna go with like I mentioned earlier. I learned not to doubt Everett. They just always seem to be scrappy and strongly defensively sound. You know how good Jarvis has been playing down south of the border kind of worries me about this prediction, but I'll go Everett first, Portland second, Spokane third. Seattle Tri-Cities can be a toss-up. I didn't get the chance to watch them enough last year and see how they progress. Let's just say, let's keep the standings as is in the bottom two.
Okay. So I'm going to go Portland number 1. You know, and this all depends on who they're getting back. If they get Joel Holfer back, you know, and I'm pretty sure as of last year he was a 19-year-old, so he would have been a 20-year-old this year. So, you know, hopefully they can get him back. They're getting Seth Jarvis back, so that's good. They're leading, you know, and then a lot of these other guys that are coming up this is now their second year, they're sophomores in the WHL. You know, they could have big years. We don't know. So I'm going to go Portland 1, Everett 2. It's a toss-up between them because I feel like they're going to be just as competitive this year as they were last year. I'm going to get Spokane in 3, but you never know. They could come out of nowhere and surprise everybody. And Seattle, I'm going to stay Seattle where it is. They actually were the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference last year, even with a losing record. And Tri-City Americans, I think they're going to stay where they are. And I'm excited to actually see if Sam Aremba can get in and get some playing time with Seattle and show those Americans how we play hockey here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, Sam's going to be interesting to see. A lot of those early picks in the draft last year, a lot of them getting the chance to come up. Like Cole Lind, another one, Red Deer, and like we talked about Brady Bierney before, and Yager, Demusha. It's going to be interesting, and you know Sam's going to get I would imagine he's going to get some good ice time in Seattle. They're going to want to see what he can give him a little bit of a taste for next year, so he can hit the ground running next season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the U.S. division. The U.S. division starts on March 19th. They are not doing a bubble format. I think Portland's still waiting approval from the state of Oregon if they can play in their home rink or if they have to move into Washington to play. We're not sure. So exciting hockey to be played in the U.S. division. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. That's, like I said before, that's how Jared and I get paid here on the show on ASTV, is by commercials. So when we come back from our commercial break, we are going to reveal who our special guest is that will be giving some insight on the BC division, and we're going to break down the BC division as well. So stay tuned. We're back here on the SAS Sports Show on ASTV. I'm here with our special guest. He is the play-by-play man for the Kamloops Blazers in the WHL. And tonight he is going to be our BC Division insider. As of today, the BC Division has been approved to play a full season starting March 26th, and Kamloops and Kelowna have been approved as hub cities. So, John, let's just right off the bat, let's talk about that return to play.
Hey, great to be back, guys. Yeah, it was a busy 24 hours here in the province when first BC Health Minister Adrian Dix announced there would be an approval in principle for the Western Hockey League, and that really set everybody off into a bit of a tizzy around the league, because for many teams and the league, that was really the first they have heard of the approval. They knew it was coming, they just didn't know when. So fast forward 24 hours, the WHL comes out with the official release. Last jurisdiction to be approved, yes. And then Dr. Bonnie Henry cemented that earlier today in her briefing. So it was great.
And just kind of, I know how lively you are on Twitter. with everybody else around the league, and I feel like, you kind of had the most insight firsthand. And I know we talked last night. What's the buzz? Have you talked to anybody with any of the other teams, the Prince George, Vancouver, Victoria, Kelowna, about, the excitement around coming back?
Yeah, we're all always in constant communication, and I probably talk to the colleagues of mine on the radio side daily, probably just keeping in touch. What are you hearing? What's going on? Because we're all in the information business, right? So you all want to try to stay connected and share the information you might know, and everybody's excited to finally get this done. Yeah, it's not going to be a long season and a champion crown at the end and a big playoff run. But at this point, I think you take what you can get. It was really to a situation where it's great image and good branding for the league to get this done, to get an approval and join the rest of their colleagues across the WHL. So everyone's excited. It's not a championship scenario, but they'll make the most of it.
And question 2, I also saw when the return to play plan, they have approved Kelowna and Kamloops as hub cities for the WHL, just to save on travel. Kind of what are your insights and thoughts about that?
Well, it's really a great situation when you can keep it all within one health district in the province, and that was key too. So Kamloops and Kelowna are 2 hours away or so, all within the interior health district. It's a large health district, but it really keeps everybody within the same sort of bubble here as far as districts go, where you're not worrying about some of the health districts on the coast and the island. You're getting everybody within one, so that's key. The second aspect of it is it works because of the ownership in the WHL here. You have the Blazers ownership group led by Tom Ghilardi. What is his big holdings? Well, Sandman Hotel chain. So there's a Sandman right across the rink here in Kamloops. It's a beautiful setup where you can just basically walk from door to door, hotel to rink. And that's important. Takes out buses and transportation, and you can keep the prices lower for the teams. Victoria Royal ownership, Graham Lee, part of his holdings, the Coast Hotel chain, and the teams in Kelowna will be staying at the Coast. So it really works out to have some of these heavy hitters where you can do these types of things. The cities, both Kelowna and Kamloops, have sort of rolled out the red carpet for the WHL, almost saying, like, tell us what you need to do for what you need for rink and ice time, and we'll make it happen. So they got great partners within the cities as well.
I don't know, Jared, did you have any questions for John?
As a media guy, what have you been hearing for what are you guys going to be getting for access to the teams and such throughout both bubbles?
That's a great question. Really, if you're not in the bubble per se, if you're not isolating to do it and then be in a hotel or be in that team environment, then there won't be any interviews face to face. There was talk maybe with like a 6-foot extender, one of the poles we could do. I put an iPhone and go back and forth here. Yeah, I've done it before, guys. It's not ideal, but at least you're keeping within protocol, right, of 6 feet social distancing. So all interviews will be done via online, remotely, through the phone. Just anything you can do to sort of protect the integrity of that bubble and the players and the coaches and the staff.
Yeah. What about play-by-play? Sorry, for play-by-play guys, are they going to stick to a set few, or what's the restrictions around that?
That's another great question. I'm really following suit of what I'm hearing about the Saskatchewan bubble and the hub there in Regina. And I think it's going to be the same protocol where basically if you're embedded with the team and you're bubbled with that team, you wouldn't have press box access. You'd have to call the games remotely, maybe be off the WHL live feed from a laptop or a computer, and that would be very difficult here. Where if you're not in that bubble, well, then you have access to press row and you can sort of come and go. So that's the route I'm choosing to do. I think it works for everybody. It allows me to sort of be everywhere else at the radio station around my coworkers there. It allows me to travel back and forth to Kelowna on my own or with maybe another staff member on the team that isn't in that bubble per se. It's not ideal, guys, but for 48, 50 days, we'll try to make it work. I have a half an hour pregame show, and it's going to be tough to fill those minutes. You guys know what it's like trying to fill time. So a lot of these interviews will have to be done ahead of time. All the ducks will have to be in a row before you hit that on-air button.
And I just have a question for you too with the bubble. And we talked about how, Glardy, obviously he owns the Sandman right across the street from the Sandman Center. Is he just going to book up that whole hotel and just have you or the Blazers, Vancouver, and Prince George all just going to just quarantine at the hotel?
Well, for 7 days, I believe, yes, for Prince George and Vancouver. Some of that protocol is yet to be released, but yeah, there will be some sort of a quarantine. A soft quarantine is supposed to start Saturday for these teams. Interesting enough, the Blazers, and this was a little bit of a surprise today, guys, the Blazers and the Kelowna Rockets will not have to be part of that hotel. They can stay with their billets, their billet situation they have now or have had in the past, and avoid sort of that hotel isolation thing, which is a bit of a surprise because for me that opens up a little bit more moving parts when you're trying to keep COVID out. You have billet families and kids, so they are testing and they are going to try to maintain protocol here. But when you're around other people, that's where you can obviously bring something like this into the situation. We don't want to see that.
Well, it's kind of like that situation that they had in Red Deer with the kids just playing just staying at the rink. I listened to an interview Brent Sutter did, and he said that exact thing that you just said. There's so many more moving parts with the fact that when you have it gives the kids a chance just to hang out with their friends. Obviously, all the press or all the executive boxes and stuff have been turned into rooms for them. The concourse is now basketball hoop and a ping pong table and all that kind of stuff. And it gives them that opportunity to be able just to walk freely and go do whatever they want when they're in the rink instead of having just to contain themselves in the room. So I thought it was a great idea, honestly. Obviously, not every team can do that. Obviously, Edmonton and Calgary are not playing out of their big NHL rinks that they usually play at. But I thought it was a good idea. And maybe the BC division could look into that. I don't know if it's feasible for all the teams. Obviously, with you guys being a hub, it's kind of impossible.
It's great. What they did in Red Deer was genius. Applaud Brent Sutter and that crew for thinking outside the box. It really is. And I know that picture of the bed set up in the luxury suite, that picture went around the world. Basically dream come true, right? Like fantasy. We're living at the rink. We're literally living at the rink, and that was awesome what they did. I thought that was great. So, in a situation, JD, where you don't have like hotel partners like the Blazers and Victoria Royals do, then maybe you get creative like that. But in this situation, controlled environment in the hotels, that was the proposal they had to get checked off on.
I just feel that. No matter what situation, people are excited that WHL hockey is finally approved in BC, the last province that I know you guys have had some issues and you've been back and forth with the government trying to come up with a plan to safely return to play. And now, as of March 26th, it is finally back.
Yeah, it's back and it's great, and it's going to be everyone's excited. I know some of the players here are pumped, especially the draft eligible guys here. We got a real good young talent in Logan Stankoven, so we're looking forward to a season here. Be it what it is, we're carrying all 24 games, and we're excited to, as you bring up the standings there, hang a banner too. It'll be like the zero fan banner raising ceremony here. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait for that. That's everyone's going to love it. So it'll be a great time for sure.
Well, as you've mentioned, Logan Stankoven, I kind of wanted to move in quickly and just kind of get talk to you about the breakdown of the season as well, and just kind of see your predictions and kind of get your input on players to watch. And like you said, and you and I both we got to watch Logan Stankoven on a daily basis last year, and he was just unreal. He's a Kamloops product. He played down, I'm pretty sure, in the Yale Hockey Academy, or it was Delta Hockey Academy. Just a great young player. And obviously Connor Zary, he blossomed into a great hockey player, first-line player with OC and Frankie last year, so that was great to see. But, kind of just we'll start with the Blazers, and then we'll kind of move on. Let's just get your opinion and what players are coming back and how do you feel the Blazers will end the season this year?
Yeah, a lot is unknown, guys, because it really is a developmental season when you start thinking, how is it going to break down? A lot of these teams will be basically trying to use this year as a springboard for 21-22 for the fall, because really there's nothing on the line here. So the best you can prepare yourself for the full season in 21-22, you might be better off. So we're seeing some teams not even carry the 3 20-year-olds because these players won't be part of that in 21-22. So really it's going to be a bit of glorified exhibition hockey for a lot of it. You're putting the emphasis on development. Sure, you want to win, but you mentioned some of those players. The Blazers are locked and loaded. You mentioned 3 players that'll likely play together to start the season on a top line. Connor Zary, first-round pick of the Flames. Oren Centazzo, who had 42 goals last year, and Logan Stankoven. That's a pretty good top line. Blazers were really dealt a tough blow, but there's more important things than hockey. But losing Kyrell Sopatik to that snowboarding accident, he would have factored into the top 6 forwards there. Brody Stewart would have as well as a 20-year-old, but he'll have a knee injury. In fact, he'll help out as an assistant coach this year instead. So you're really looking at guys like Josh Pillar to come in, a good Saskatchewan guy there from just outside Saskatoon. You're looking at a very veteran defense with 2 20-year-olds, 2 19-year-olds, and a real veteran defense with a goaltender who just made his first pro start in the American Hockey League earlier today in Dylan Garand, and was part of Canada's World Junior team. So as much high-flying as the Blazers were last year, this team really, I think, is going to be built from the crease on out when you have Dylan Garand, Montana Onyebuchi, Sean Strange, Quinn Schmiemann, Iñaki Barragano from Switzerland, and then you have some really good up-and-coming young defensemen, including Mats Lindgren, a 16-year-old dynamo who's really going to turn some heads this year. It's going to be a great group, and I'm really going to be focusing on these young guys. Could be up to 6 16-year-olds on this team, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these guys progress.
Yeah. How do you think they're gonna manage the goaltending tandem there in Kamloops with if Dylan comes back? Obviously you got Dylan Erst, who's an 04 born, who you kind of want to get some games in, so he's gonna be your goalie of the future. How do you think that's gonna play out throughout the season?
Yeah, I think if it was a situation where you're trying to win a division and go in the playoffs, then you probably ride Dylan Garand pretty hard, right? Like you would ride him probably 85% of the games. But in this case, it might be 60-40. It might be, 60-40 is probably a number that we can see. I guess we'll have to see how Dylan Erst, the 16-year-old, can handle this. I mean, to say, okay, you're going to get, 12 starts or 10 starts, we don't really know. He did come in as a 15-year-old and play already. I think he'll be ready to go. Just be a situation. You guys remember, we're trying to pack 24 games into 48 days. There's going to be back-to-backs, right? And sometimes in the back-to-back games, you're going to switch up your goaltending situation. So they'll need both, and I'm excited. You mentioned the 6 16-year-olds I just talked about. Dylan Erst, one of those 16-year-olds who has all the accolades and has all the pedigree here to be a real impactful goaltender.
Well, and talking about 16-year-olds too, I know from last year you had some 16-year-olds, obviously Logan Stankoven being one of them, but, a guy like Caden Bankier, he proved himself last year. You had Semenoff, he came in and he had a really good season. They were playing near before, obviously, everything happened. They were playing in that third, fourth line too. Obviously, Carpendale kind of worked into that mix too for a little bit. Obviously, he's not a 16-year-old, but I think Dalen Kiefler too. All those guys. They're now in their second year in the WHL. They're going to be that much better, and I know they're. I feel like you said they're just going to have a dynamite of a team this year.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and these are all young guys you hope take the next step. And Caden Bankier, draft year, he's draft eligible, so that he wants to be in some key situations. You mentioned Matthew Semenoff, even though he's now 17, his draft year isn't until next year at 18. So another year for him. But there's a lot of young talent, a lot of good 16, 17-year-olds here that are going to demand ice time, and the Blazers will. All I know, they will be willing and able to give these kids, these young guys, some primetime ice, and what better time than interdevelopmental season, which we're going to see.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to ask you is, you mentioned that Inaki Barragano's coming back. I've noticed around the league too, a lot of there's a lot of the import players haven't come back. Obviously, they've stayed in their respective countries wherever they're playing hockey. Obviously, the Blazers lost Igor Zabransky. He's decided that he's going to go play back in the Czech Republic. I noticed that Spokane's not getting Lucas Parik back. He was their number one goaltender from last year. Lethbridge didn't get Oliver Okular back from Slovakia. I'm not sure if Alexi Protas is coming back either. But, what's kind of – I know, like you said, this season's it's a shortened season. But for those import guys, is it better for them to just kind of stay in their home country? Or, what's the talk with these imports not coming back?
Yeah, I think it's a real hard sell to get them back over here if they're over in Europe already. Given it's a 24-game season with limited exposure and, over 48 days, it's a big ask. So the Blazers, in a way, got lucky because Inaki Barragano played for Switzerland at the World Juniors. And instead of going back to Switzerland, he actually came right to Kamloops to stay and wait and hope for a season. Had he gone back to Switzerland, you're right, it would have been a tough ask to get him over here. But he's been skating with some of the local group guys in town here. There's a local group of pro hockey players and some Kamloops natives that play in the WHL, like a Logan Stankoven, like a Ryan Chizowski that's skating. He's with those guys. So yeah, he's here, and he's definitely going to help the blue line here. But you're right, it's a hard sell for Europeans right now to come on over. It still is a season. It'll still be scouted. And if you're a draft eligible guy, then you're going to be, you're going to be wanting those eyeballs. You're going to be wanting to be seen. So we'll see. It's interesting to see what teams will have their imports, if they'll have one, if they'll have none. In the Blazers' case, it's one. Victor Persson, a defenseman they drafted last year, who was a Vancouver Canucks NHL pick. He'll stay over and play with his club team. Slim chance he comes and finishes with the Blazers here to finish up their year, but we'll see how that goes.
You mentioned the draft eligible guys. Do you think coaches are going to kind of have that in the back of their heads and maybe ride these guys a little more in pressure situations?
Well, there's no doubt when it's your draft year, guys, you get a little bit more leash. You get a little bit more leeway here for sure, because that's what this league is all about, right? Like when I have these guys come in here, I want them to get maximum exposure. If I'm a team, I want them to get drafted. Then I want to get them signed. Then I want to get them in pro hockey. And that's what's going to look best on an organization in the long run here. That's how you build a program. That's how you build a culture, is you get guys drafted, you get them signed, and you start building that. So that's what the Kelowna Rockets did for years, going back, 10 years ago or so. And they really built that brand that they had. And that's what teams need to do. So it's very important. I was with the Blazers, some of their staff at the NHL draft. It's sort of a watch party, if you will. And the big cheer that came up when Connor Zary was a first-round pick for the first time in this organization in years, over a decade. That was a big moment for this team. So I think if you can give guys like Logan Stankoven, who is a projected first-rounder, you give him that opportunity to do his thing, you get him drafted in the first round. Looks good on Logan, looks good on the Blazers, looks good on the whole WHL community.
Well, and like you said, the last first-round draft pick was, I'm pretty sure it was Keaton Ellerby.
Yeah, 07. Yeah, long time. Long time.
And obviously, John and I, we Blazers from Kamloops. It's just nice to see a winning attitude and the fan community getting around. There hasn't been that much exposure for the Blazers. I feel, obviously, in the tiebreaker the year before and the playoffs and whatnot, but just to, from me being a season ticket holder, just seeing all the excitement around the Blazers is awesome. And it's been a long time coming for them, I feel.
It has, you're right. And this COVID has hit them right between the eyes, guys. Like the debate last year before all of this COVID situation arose, kind of it just came out of nowhere almost and just swallowed everything. It was unbelievable. The debate, the question was that I asked, and I had many conversations about this, was what team is better? Is it this year's team? I'm talking about, likes of Zane Franklin, the team that won the BC division. Is it this year's team, or is it next year's team, which we're about to see now? That's the window for this franchise right now. I think there's another window coming, and that window might start again in 21-22. We'll see how the young guys progress. But this team has been building for this. You have 2 World Junior talents on your roster for Canada, third with Iñaki Barragano, and this team was ripe to win last year and would have been ripe to win this year. This would have been their window. It would have created massive buzz. It would have been great. It's all taken away now, level playing field. And you're right, JD. It's tough. It's a kick in the teeth for sure for the organization, but they'll move on and try to make the most of it here.
Well, Jared, do you have any final last questions for Mr. John Keane?
Just kind of going to get your input on kind of how the last season finished up, and just kind of the buzz around the town and the disappointment of how it ended.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I remember after clinching the division, it was coming up pretty much a year ago. And I remember getting back and just thinking, okay, well, there's this thing called the coronavirus, and it's starting to take over Washington. Like, we don't know. And I remember telling some of the Blazers staff, it's like they're contemplating playing games without fans in Edmonton, Seattle. And everyone kind of looked at me like, what? Like, what are you talking about here? And that just absolutely snowballed through Washington State, later into BC and across Canada. And it's why we're doing these goofy interviews we're doing right now, right on the Zoom, right? Like, this stuff's taken over. Like, who would have thought? Even a year ago right now, think back March 2, 2020, like this wasn't on the radar. And it was a blow. And Matt Bartley said it best today. This hasn't been easy on anyone. It's been a killer. I feel for the guys. I feel for the staff, and I feel for basically everybody involved in junior hockey, the BCHL working hard to try to get approval here in this province as well. So I just hope that the Blazers have enough, I guess, staying power, and I believe they will, because we're looking at no fans now until basically, you hope, September, October of this year. So can the Blazers stay in that public eye? I think they will through social media. We'll push that hard, and we hope that when those doors open and that the vaccine is taken over, that we're going to have some big crowds and that buzz and that electrifying atmosphere again. That's something that I'm going to keep in my mind here to hopefully we get back to, guys.
Well, before we end the show here, obviously that on Saturday it was Bob Ridley's 4,000th career game called for the Medicine Hat Tigers. He is his 50th year with the Tigers. He got award named after him, the Bob Ridley Award for Media Excellence, which is amazing. And I just want to ask you, do you have any good Bob Ridley stories from going to Medicine Hat or him coming here, or your time in Swift Current?
Rids is great. Some of the stuff with him, when I was, just getting out of broadcast school like you guys are doing here and getting into the business, I started in Swift Current there, as you guys know, and I was always saying, like, where could I break into this league? Like, I'm thinking of, like, I want to do WHL play-by-play. I've got some good leads. I think I can do this. But where is a job opening going to be? And I said, Bob Ridley down in Medicine Hat, like, here's a guy that might only have 1 or 2 years left, right? Like, I think I could probably, work in there and apply, because he's going to retire. Guys, that was like 23 years ago. Like 23 years ago. I'd still be waiting. I'd still be on the sidelines waiting for Bob. And the other, and Bob's like, I told him this story actually this week, and he's like, I sure fooled you, didn't I? I'm like, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. And the other funny thing about Bob is that, we do extensive post-game shows on the radio, a lot of sponsored elements like play of the game and hit of the game and your 3 stars. And these post-game shows can go on for a half hour plus, coaches interviews. Well, Rids for years also drove the Tigers bus. We're talking 20 years. He drove the bus too. And because he had to drive the bus on the road, he didn't have time for a post-game show because he had to go warm the bus up. Like, he had to go. So Rids was always Rids was great because, like, he knew he had to wrap up. So basically, he'd be like in his sign off as the clock was ticking down, like 8, 7, 6. He's like, well, the final score from Swift Current is 4-1. Good night from Swift Current. And like the horn would go honk, like the end of the game, and he'd be off the air. He'd be done. And I'd be like, oh, hey, great game, Ritz. And he'd be like, sure was. He'd walk by me with his beer, and he'd be hauling his beer, because he's like, he had to go warm the bus up, right? Like the bus has to be warm for the players when they get on. And I thought that a funny story because he never had a post-game show because he had to drive the bus as well, which is just mind-boggling to think. So.
Oh, and I know he's a man, like he's not like a normal play-by-play guy with, wears the, like he wears the shirt, the tie, the jacket. He's rocking that black leather jacket, I've noticed, and that's how he calls games. And I don't know, and I've seen older pictures of him, and he's wearing a suit and tie, but I think he just, he's been in the business for 50 years, called 4,000 games. I'm pretty sure he can get away with just wearing a leather jacket.
He can do whatever he wants. He has the award named after him. The other thing with Bob Ridley, like how many guys can you say? Bob has called games in 3 different rinks in Medicine Hat. He outlasted the Medicine Hat Arena. Like he went through 45 years of the Medicine Hat Arena until they said, no, this building's too old and decrepit. And they built a brand new rink. Like it's unbelievable, his staying power. It's fantastic.
And I imagine that you watched the WHL live on Saturday, and all the people that, ex Tiger players, and then just, WHL alum that have known Rids and either met him through, obviously playing the WHL, but just the support and the gratitude that everybody gave him. It was just incredible. Some of the guys that are NHLers and now they're coaching, and maybe have kids in the area that are, still listening to Rids. It's great for the hockey community.
Yeah, Rids he's a father figure to a lot of these guys. Like I mentioned driving the bus. Like sometimes on some of these long hauls, it's 2, 3 in the morning and you're 100 miles from nowhere. And a lot of guys, if they trust the bus driver, if they like him, they'll walk up to the front and they'll sit down in that little pod, or there's a little hole there. And Rids these guys would just sit there and talk to Rids, and bus drivers appreciate this too. Like it keeps them active and and engaged in the road at 3 a.m. So he's had a lot of conversations in the middle of the night with a lot of these players, and and he mentions that too. So when you drive the bus, when you call the games, you're Mr. Everything, and you're such a good guy like he is. Yeah, he's going to have a lot of people come to bat for him when he hits a milestone like this.
Well, Jared, do you have anything for John?
I think I got everything covered.
Great job on the Southwest Terminal, guys. That's a great sponsor logo there. Well done, guys. Well done.
Yeah, that's Jared actually works for him. So
there you go.
That's how he got the sponsor. No, actually, I don't know.
Yeah, that is how I got the sponsor, probably.
They're great community supporters there. So well done, guys. Way to go.
Well, John, I appreciate you jumping on the show and giving your insight on the BC division for this year, and good luck to obviously you, the Blazers, and the whole BC division, having PG, one of Kamloops' biggest rivals, they're using their rink, and obviously one of Kamloops' another rivals too is Vancouver. Good luck to you and the Blazers organization and the whole BC division. Hopefully it works out for you guys. I know I'll be watching along with probably everybody else in Western Canada, because there's nothing else going on. Thanks again for doing this for us, John.
Yeah, guys, that was great. Great chat. You guys have a great night, and best of luck there with what you're doing there. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, that wraps up another episode of Sports Show here on ASTV. Jared, I appreciate you coming on the show. We got to talk some WHL. Got to break down all the divisions, and yeah, just thanks for your input and your analysis of what's going to happen. I'm excited for the trickling effect of these 3 divisions starting to play, starting with the East Division next Friday, and then the US Division, and then now the BC Division, which is great. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, JD. It was good. It's a little tough analyzing some stuff when you don't know exactly who's all coming back, but I'm looking forward to seeing some hockey, and I'm looking forward to seeing my Broncos. A lot of prospects coming up, and seeing how they do next week here.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I know I'll have you on the show again, probably to do the exact same thing. So I I appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe a draft preview crossover show or something like that, eh?
Sounds good to me. And I just wanted to forget before Jared signs off, he is the host of the SAS AAA show here on ASTV. It airs on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
So if you want, he interviews AAA hockey players, coaches, managers, anything. If you want any of that action, just jump right over to our ASTV Facebook, YouTube, and ASTVproductions.com to catch that as well. So, Jared, thank you, and I will see you again.
Yep, thank you.
And that concludes another episode, like I said, of the SAS Sports Show here on ASTV. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm super excited for, as you can probably tell, for the WHL to start. All the 3 other leagues start as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure to check it out. Check the SAS Sports Show out every Thursday night at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on ASTV's Facebook, YouTube pages, and at astvproductions.com. So I will make sure to tune in next Thursday for another episode of the SAS Sports Show. Good night, and I'll see you next week.